All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. I am Stacy Cook, and I'm a leader with Young Living. And tonight we are so fortunate to have Sherry Placco joining us. Sherry is going to tell us her story about her journey with her autoimmune and how that all began. Quickly, I don't want to take up a lot of time because I want Sherry to tell her story and I want to keep this relatively short. But I had the pleasure of meeting Sherry 4 years ago, and I didn't know her at the time. I'm lucky now to call her a good friend. But 4 years ago, she came to a class I was teaching at the local library, and she was just looking for something different because she had been blindsided with this huge change in her life. And she had kind of given me a little heads up before the class of what she was dealing with. And so I had done a little bit of research for her and had a little bit of information to share, but I didn't really know the magnitude of what she was going through. And here we are 4 years later, and she has done a 180 with her health by really taking control and taking charge. So I am not going to delay any further. I'm going to turn it over to Sherry and let her tell us her story.
Thank you, Stacy. So it's been quite a journey. Now, when I reached out to Stacy, and first I want to say that we are not doctors. I don't even pretend to be. I teach littles. I am a third grade teacher. And that being said, it's really interesting to have an autoimmune and to be in an environment around a bunch of little kids who you're always sending them home sick. So a little bit about my background before I even start. I have had asthma my entire lifetime, and that will come into play a little later in the story. But debilitating asthma. I was the kid in third grade when all of us got the little recorders to play in music class. I was so excited. I came home. I was like walking around the house with the recorder, and I was in the emergency room that night. I didn't have the lung capacity to even play that recorder. And back then, there weren't inhalers yet. There wasn't really a quick fix for asthma like there is now. They would give me a shot of adrenaline. I would be very ill. I would go home and be sick and weak for a day or two while I was trying to breathe. So I was that poor little 8-year-old in third grade, the entire semester of music class, like, because I couldn't even play the recorder. I had weekly allergy shots. I kind of outgrew it around age 18, and I stopped the allergy shots. I was using maybe some maintenance meds. Fast forward to college. I'm student teaching. I'm doing well. My first teaching job. I'm so excited. I get through my first month of teaching, and then the month of October comes. And Halloween. I wasn't in my classroom for Halloween. I was in the hospital for 10 days. My asthma kicked in really badly because as an adult, you're not used to the germs all those littles have. And my body was like, what are you doing to us? And my asthma took a huge hit, and they couldn't get me breathing. I ended up with a really severe case of pneumonia. My asthma then came back full force as a 24-year-old. And I started having to treat it like I did when I was younger. But now, thankfully, there were inhalers and different things to help me. So that went on, and I got to the point where it was just a maintenance type of issue. I could do whatever I wanted, and I lived my life, and it was what it was. You know, this is what my life had always been since I was 3. So fast forward to 4 years ago, and the reason that we're doing this talk now is because Mother's Day is the anniversary that this has all started for me. 4 years ago, so Mother's Day 2015, I hosted my family, and I hadn't been feeling well. And it wasn't anything I could put my finger on. It wasn't like I felt a flu coming on or just something wasn't right. And I hugged my mom goodbye, and I felt this pain go up the back of my neck, kind of like a migraine. But I had never had a migraine here. I always had frontal migraines. And I was like, something's not right. So they left, and I went and laid down. And if any of you guys have had migraines, I was like, you couldn't move your head. When you get that feeling, you just want to go and keep as still as you can. So I went to bed, and I kind of ended up falling asleep, holding my head up. So the next morning, my wrist and my shoulder hurt. And I was like, well, duh, you fell asleep, holding your head up. I didn't think anything of it. got up, went to work. Well, on Tuesday, so 2 days after Mother's Day, both wrists and both shoulders hurt. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I wasn't sleeping funny last night. I wonder what's going on. Wednesday, funny but not so funny, I couldn't get my arms behind me to do my bra. And so the not so funny but funny part is I asked my husband, I'm like, Jim, can you come here and help me? And he laughed and said, hold on, I need my glasses. It's like, dude, we're not even 50 yet. What are we doing here? So we kind of laughed about it, but we were worried because that had never, I couldn't move my arms enough to do that. On Thursday, so 4 years ago tomorrow, all of a sudden my ankles and my knees were hurting. Everything in my body was sore. I called the doctor that afternoon. Now, my doctor knew me well because of my asthma state. And he said, you have some kind of weird flare going on. He only used the word flare. So I didn't really know what that meant. He said, I'm going to throw you on steroids for 5 days. As an asthmatic, that was kind of like my life. I had like a bottle of them in my cabinet because when I don't breathe, they pop me on them. It's like, okay, whatever. I started to feel better a day after steroids. But by the 4th day, the symptoms started coming back. And I am the kind of teacher in my classroom that I'm always moving. I'm always on the go. I don't sit down. I felt like a 90-year-old. I could barely move. I could barely walk through the building. It got to where the bottoms of my feet even hurt. So every joint in my body was inflamed. I called the doctor back and he said, all right, this is a little more serious. We're going to up your prednisone and I'm going to send you to a rheumatologist. And I was like, oh, what's that? What do you mean? What's a rheumatologist? I literally knew nothing about autoimmune. I had heard about, those people, they get these autoimmunes. I knew it wasn't a good thing, but I didn't know anything about it. So he sent me to this rheumatologist and they do my blood work and they don't want to give it a name. He's like, yeah, you have some inflammatory markers. They kept using these words, but they didn't want to give it a diagnosis. Now, I gave myself a diagnosis. I said, there is something wrong with me because I went in and I couldn't get my rings on. And I have little hands. I don't think they're large fingers. And the doctor's like, oh, they look fine. Well, I took my ring out of my purse. Now, I'm very fortunate. My rings all fit again. But at the time, my ring stopped here above the knuckle. And I said, this fit me 3 weeks ago. And I know it's not the prednisone. I've been on prednisone. This shouldn't be what's happening. And he said, okay, well, we're going to add more prednisone. I ended up on 50 milligrams of prednisone, friends, for almost 9 months. Now, if anyone's ever been on prednisone, it's not kind to your body. You don't sleep. You feel like your heart's racing. I won't even talk about the weight gain issues. And you feel miserable. And yes, it is. It's so scary to have that feeling because I didn't know what was going on. Now, luckily, the school year was winding down. So even though I was miserable, I put on that happy face. Stress definitely adds to these conditions. So I got through the school year and I didn't feel better, but it leveled out over the summer. Nothing was really changing in my blood work. Still wouldn't give me a name to it, but there was something there. So he decided to put me on a medication called Plaquenil. And he said, oh, we use this for people with RA. And I was like, oh, so is that what we're calling this? Well, no, not necessarily. They don't want to give me a label yet. And I said, okay. And again, I only know about big pharma at this point. And I take it. I'm still on 50 milligrams of prednisone. After 4 weeks, nothing is happening. My blood work doesn't change. My rings still don't fit. August comes along. Nothing is any better. And now I have to get ready to go back to school. So I'm kind of getting worried because I know once I'm around all these littles, it's not going to be good. So I'm all on Facebook and I see my friend Stacy about this class. And I was like, well, nothing can be worse than all these meds I'm on. There has to be something better out there. And I think she might have even had the wording in hers like, are you looking for something better or looking for something different? And I was like, yes, I am. I knew nothing about essential oils. I just saw those things in the store. I just had no idea. So I went to her class and was blown away. And not even about the whole essential oil thing, because she started talking about the chemicals in my house. And I was like, oh, I never thought about that. I was the girl that I had air fresheners everywhere. We have dogs, and I thought my house smelled like dog, and I wanted it to smell like a Hawaiian breeze or a pine forest. So I had those little machines that every 90 seconds would poof out, that Hawaiian breeze or the pine forest. And when she told me that there was formaldehyde in there and it was a cancer-causing agent, I went, oh man, what have I been doing to my family? I didn't even think about me. I thought about my family. I went home, didn't even order my starter kit yet. Went home and threw them all out. My husband looked at me like I had lost my mind. And I said, trust me, you're going to love me because I've been making you sick. Not even thinking about the impact that that's been having on my asthma. Those two things kind of never really connected for me because I had asthma since I was 3. There weren't these air fresheners way back then. So I never kind of put all these pieces together. Did some research. Stacy was amazing because she helped me learn where to go. She's not a doctor. I'm not a doctor. She told me about oiltestimonies.com. And then this lovely little book, if you don't have it, you want to get it. She said, this is some of the things that people that have rheumatoid arthritis found to be really helpful to support their body. Ningxia Red, all about my immune system. And then she said, the sulfurzyme, and it's a supplement. And I went, nope. I'm the girl that won't take vitamins. I tried vitamins for years. My husband loves them. They don't do anything for me. I'm not going to take a supplement. And she was like, you do you, but these are what people have found effective. And I was like, okay. So I ordered my kit because I really wanted to sleep. I wasn't sleeping at all because of the steroids. So I got my kit and I joined Essential Rewards because I was like, I got to drink this Ningxia Red stuff because I go back to school next week. So I ordered my kit. School started. By the 6th day of school with students, I was having a severe asthma issue. So I'm at my doctor's office, 6th day of school. And he patted me on the shoulder and said, I hope you have a lot of sick days. I'm like, well, what does that mean? He's like, you have an autoimmune. You're already on 50 milligrams of prednisone. You can't get a flu shot. I don't know how much more we can do for you. You're going to need to take days off and just heal. And I was like, well, that's not a good solution. And I said, I just ordered these essential oils. And he was like, just kind of shut me down. He's like, they're not going to hurt you, but they're probably not going to help you. And I was like, okay, well, thanks for the pep talk. And I left. And that was in September of 2015. So we go on. I'm taking my Ningxia Red. I get over the asthma issue. And I'm not getting any other illnesses. I'm not getting any little bugs from the kids. I have a diffuser going in my classroom. I'm not catching their colds. I'm not catching their flus. I had always gotten all the illnesses. I was the sickest I'd ever been, but it was my healthiest winter. Like, how was that possible? My body was still in a flare. I'm still on these medications, but I didn't get any colds. Ningxia Red, people. I don't know what the magic in there is, but you have to do it. The other thing is I started removing more chemicals from my house. Those air fresheners were the first step. And then I learned about the laundry soap and definitely the cleaners. My husband and I, we battled for a while. He called me Sherry Potter for the longest time, me with all my witchcraft and wizardry. You go do your thing. Fully supported it, but wanted nothing to do with it. So I brought out the thieves cleaner and my stuff, and I said, this is all we use. And I will never forget this day. It was probably late November, early December of that year. I walked into my house after it was like a weekend, and I had been out running errands. And I came in and I smelled Windex. And I was like, what is that? And he looked at me like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? I'm like, I smell the chemicals. Where did you find them? Because I threw all of them out. There were none in the house. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I am not a moron. I smell the chemicals. And he was like, it was in the garage. And he was like so sheepish about admitting it to me. And I said, hun, honestly, there's a better way. I showed him. After I showed him how to use it, he's never bought another chemical since. He is now all in. He's doing all the products with me, but it took longer to convert him. But getting those chemicals out, it was amazing. Once I detoxed my body, and I don't know about any of you, but I can't walk down like that laundry aisle at the grocery store. And I had already detoxed my body and he had not. And when we would be at the grocery store, I would have to walk down the aisle kind of like very nondescript like this. And he would look at me like, stop, it doesn't smell bad. Now he won't walk down that aisle either. He gets what was going on with me in those early days. Once you get all of that stuff out of your system, it's amazing how different you feel. So we're fast forwarding, still not able to wear my rings. The holidays come along. I'm not feeling great, but I'm not horrible, but I'm still on 50 milligrams of prednisone since the end of May. It's now December. Go back to the rheumatologist. I said, something has to give. He said, all right, we're going to try methotrexate. Now, methotrexate is a low-dose chemo med. It's like the second thing they try with the Plaquenil. And he goes, and if this doesn't work, we're going to try a biologic. Now, the biologics are all those commercials you see, like the Humiras and all of that. You know, it fixes one thing and there's 22 other side effects that now you get to fix the one. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not. I'll try this one thing, but I'm not going to do it. So we tried methotrexate and he warned me I could have gastrointestinal side effects. Now at this point, I'm drinking Ningxia Red and I'm diffusing for sleep. Hallelujah, I sleep. But I wasn't doing any internal usage. So I take this methotrexate medicine. By day 2, it's like someone was twisting my intestines. So I was like, uh-oh, I have to do that digest stuff. I don't know about you guys, but when I would open that bottle when I first got it, I would literally gag. And I had always heard that if you're repelled to the smell of an oil, your body needs it. And I was like, my body can't need that stuff because it's awful. So my husband helped me make capsules. That was a whole nother adventure. That's another story. But he helped me make capsules with it. And I took it the next morning. By the second day, I did not have any of those issues. And you know what else I noticed? My tummy was happier. So another thing I haven't shared with you, and it's a little TMI, I've never been good in the bathroom. My mom was never a good bathroom person. I just thought that was the norm. I'm talking about like twice a week. Honestly, that was my normal. I started doing this digest stuff and I started going more. And the RA things weren't getting any better, but my belly was feeling better. I was feeling better with everything else. So I went back to the doctor. My blood work was no different after 5 weeks of this other medicine. And I said, okay, I have some things I want to share with you. I was willing to go the supplement route, people. After all of the research, I took in all the information about sulfurzyme. I researched MSM. So do your research, look up MSM, see what it can do for your body. I knew that this one sounded like it could do the most for me. So I took in the information to my doctor. And I said, is this safe for me? And then I also took in information about Copaiba Vitality because I had heard there were some really great things for you when you take it internally. So I took both of those to him. I'm so grateful to this day that he is an old school doctor who was very open to different alternative methods because my general practitioner was not. He was like, yeah, okay, whatever. So my rheumatologist looks at these things and I'm allergic to sulfa medication. Sulfurzyme sounded like sulfa. I was like, oh, I don't know, I might be allergic. And he was like, oh no, it's a completely different constituent. You're fine. This is completely safe. Go for it. And I was like, okay. And he said, you do that. We're going to keep you on everything else. But we started to get me off prednisone because now we're at the end of January, May to January, still on 50 milligrams of prednisone. So we start weaning me down. I start taking 4 sulfurzyme a day. I started taking Copaiba and we're just kind of going on. Now, when it was time for me to go back, he said, come back in 4 weeks. About 2 days before the end of that first 4-week period, so we're talking end of March now, mid-March, I realized something. I had not been using my asthma inhaler for a few days. Now, I was on an asthma inhaler that you had to use twice a day. It was a steroid with a long-acting bronchodilator. And it wasn't like, oh, time to go use the inhaler. It would be like, oh, I forgot to use that. Twice a day. I could not skip it. It was 3 or 4 days before I was like, oh, when was the last time I used that thing? And I was like, oh man, this is pretty, like, wait, what? And I went to the doctor. And here's the other thing, guys. Every time I would go to the doctor, he would ask to see the pictures because I would take pictures of where my rings were fitting me. And when I walked in that time in early March, he walked in and I was like, look, all my rings are on my fingers. And that was a huge moment for me because not being able to wear my rings was very emotional. And so my husband and I decided that if by Mother's Day 2016 my rings didn't fit, we were going to resize them because I was like, well, if they don't fit after a year, they're probably not going to. So this was March. So I was only 2 months away from having that done. And so we did my blood work. And he goes, well, it seems like we've muddied the waters a little bit here because you tried your thing. And at this point, I was down to 10 milligrams of prednisone. And he said, why don't we stop his big medicines? So I got to stop the Plaquenil and the methotrexate. We're going to finish getting you off prednisone. You do your stuff and let's see what happens. And I said, doctor, this wasn't a plan, but for some reason, my asthma seems to be like really good. And he said, oh, sometimes methotrexate is given for really severe asthmatics. And I was like, okay, whatever. I've had this my whole life. Didn't expect that to go anywhere. So that's okay. Left the office. He said, call me if anything changes though. I'll call you tomorrow with your blood work. He called me the next day, excited. My blood work had dropped for the first time in all of the months I had been seeing him. None of the medications impacted my blood work. This did. So fast forward, I go back to see him in the early June. And I walked in. He didn't even ask to see my hands. His first question was, how's your asthma? And I said, what asthma? I have not used an inhaler or taken any medications for my autoimmune since March of 2016. It has been like the most freeing time. Now, there is not one magical cure. It was all of the combinations. Remember when I talked about that TMI bathroom stuff? I found out that as I was healing my gut, because I started taking digestive enzymes at that same time. In early March, I looked into Essential Zymes and Essential Zymes 4. I got the chemicals out of my life. I started eating better. I looked at changing my diet. I am not gluten-free. I'm not going to lie. I like bread. I know I shouldn't eat bread, but I like it. I'm not a gluten-free kind of girl. And when I would go to my chiropractor who does a lot of natural medicine, she gave me an anti-inflammatory diet. And I'm like, that's everything I eat. I can't give all that up. So I reduced a lot of it, but I have to live, right? So there is no one magical key, but it's the doing your research, looking into the chemicals that you're putting into your body. Because as women, we are at a greater risk for autoimmune. I did not realize that asthma actually set me up as a precursor for an autoimmune. Asthma is not an autoimmune, but it's an inflammatory disease of our lungs and bronchial tubes. And the more allergic responses you get, it's triggering your immune system. So I had no idea because there is no family history for me with an autoimmune or RA. None, anywhere. So the girl who would never take a vitamin, Stacy laughs at me all the time about this. I now take maybe 12 of our supplements a day. I recommend that if you want to experiment with a supplement, research them. But I tell everyone, even if you don't have anything going on, you need sulfurzyme in your life. We all need MSM. Google MSM and see why sulfurzyme is so critical for every single one of you. That was my gateway. I call it my gateway supplement. I started with that one, and I have since added in Agiles because I'm 50. I don't think I said that in the beginning. I turned 50 last summer, and I feel better now than I ever have in my life. In fact, today, I'm so excited about this. It was my first golf lesson of the season. Golf, hello. I know nothing about it. I'm going to be terrible, but I'm so excited because 4 years ago, it was nothing I could have imagined doing, gripping a golf club and swinging it. And I couldn't have imagined doing that. Even before this autoimmune, I don't think I felt good enough about anything in my body. I don't think I felt healthy enough to be able to do that. So the other products I'm doing, I do Agilise because, you know, come on guys, it's arthritis. I'm older. My joints don't always like me, even without the RA. I like BLM. So I had started with Agilise first and I loved it. A friend of mine told me, girl, that frankincense resin powder, you just want that in your body. And when BLM came back, I added that to the regimen. And I felt even better when I added that to the regimen. And just do your research and be comfortable with what you're doing, but improve your gut. And I think you're going to see everything else falling into place. Because once I removed the chemicals and improved my gut, everything came together. So is there anything else that I can talk about, Stacy? I know I can ramble on really easily.
Oh, Sherry, that was awesome. I love hearing your story because it's incredible to me. And I think that it's so key, like you said, that you just took charge of what was going on and you knew that there had to be something better, that you weren't going to accept that your doctor was going to tell you, guess what, you're just going to get sick all the time, deal with it.
Right.
Because none of us should accept that. And we're very lucky that we have access to so many different tools in the wellness toolbox. And so it's just a matter, like you did, of doing a little bit of research, doing a little bit of experimentation, you know.
Definitely.
And I love it. I love your story. I could like listen to it over and over again.
And I love that Young Living has so many vitality oils. So like, this is always like my best friend because I will look up things and I'm like, oh, I didn't know it could help with that. And so I added into a wellness capsule. I love that I don't take anything over the counter anymore. I have no over the counter medicines in my house. And it's just 5 years ago, I didn't know that this world existed. And I think it's just something that people need to be aware of. There is such a better way that when we kind of go backwards, we go back to nature, get rid of all these harmful things and kind of start over. I feel like my body had a full reset when I did all of these things. And so it's not just one thing that's going to work. You need to do that full body reset, get the chemicals out, heal your gut, and then do your research to see what's going to help whatever you've got going on to help you feel better. And sleep. Sleep is important.
Sleep is always key. I love it. Thank you so much, Sherry. I am going to close this out. And I so appreciate you sharing your story because I know that it can impact a lot of people and help a lot of people. So thank you.
And I know we didn't answer any questions here on the call, but if anyone has any questions for me, message me on Facebook. I would be glad to chat with you or talk to you because I know there just wasn't time to really do a Q&A here on the call. So just shoot me a message.
Absolutely. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Everybody.